All right, let's talk about a question that every single business has to face. How good was your financial forecast, really? It's not just about getting a pat on the back for being right. It's about getting smarter for next time. So let's break down how you actually do that. Look, here's the only guarantee in the world of forecasting. Your forecast is going to be wrong. It's just a fact of life. So the real question isn't if you were wrong, but how wrong were you? And just as important, where were you wrong? Figuring that out is the absolute first step to building a better one next quarter.
Okay, first up, we need a way to measure the average miss. And for that, we're going to meet the most common tool in the box, MAPE. So this is MAPE, which stands for mean absolute percentage error. The best way to think about it is as the brutally honest average of all your mistakes. It goes line by line, calculates the percentage you are off for each one, and then just averages them all up. Simple, clean, and nowhere to hide. And that simplicity is both MAPE's greatest strength and its biggest weakness. It's super easy to explain. Hey boss, we were off by 8% on average. Everyone gets that. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. MAPE is totally blind to scale. A 50% error on your office coffee budget is treated exactly the same as a 50% error on your total company sales. And, well, you can see why that might be a problem. So in the real world, you'll see it used like this to compare accuracy between different parts of the business. You can instantly see, hey, we're way better at predicting sales than we are at predicting admin costs. But notice what this doesn't tell you. It gives you zero clue about the actual dollar impact of those misses. So if MAPE treats everything equally, how do we get it to focus on the errors that could actually sink the ship, the ones that really matter to the bottom line? Well, that brings us to our next metric, WAPE. This right here is the critical question that MAPE just can't answer. You might have a low average error that makes you feel great, but if your biggest percentage misses are on your most important financial lines, that simple average is hiding a really dangerous story. And that's where WAPE comes in. It stands for Weighted Absolute Percentage Error. And you can think of it as MAPE's smarter, more business-savvy cousin. It also measures percentage error, but, and this is the game changer, it weighs each error based on its actual financial value. In other words, a miss on that multi-million-dollar revenue line, yeah, that matters a whole lot more than a miss on the $1,000 coffee budget. WAPE is incredibly powerful because it gives you that true big picture view. It's the perfect number for an executive summary telling you how accurate you were based on financial impact. The trade-off, of course, is that by focusing so much on the big stuff, it can completely mask a five-alarm fire that's happening in a smaller but maybe strategically vital part of the business. This is what WAPE looks like in the boardroom. It's a single, powerful number that tells leadership, hey, on the things that move the needle the most, we were pretty well aligned with reality. It's clean, it's powerful, and it speaks the language of financial impact. So let's just boil it down. With MAPE, every category's error gets one vote. It's a democracy. With WAPE, it's not a democracy. The categories with the biggest dollars get the biggest vote. You really need both to see the full picture. Okay, so we've measured the size of our errors, but what about their character? Their personality. Are we consistently too optimistic? Or are we getting blindsided by huge one-off mistakes? It's time to go deeper and start looking for those hidden patterns.
First up is bias, and this one is a personal favorite because it's less about how much you are off and more about which direction. It answers a really simple question. Are you constantly forecasting over your actuals or under? It basically reveals your team's forecasting personality. Are you guys a bunch of optimists or are you sandbagging? Seeing a number like this should be a huge red flag. A consistent bias of plus 4% means you are systematically, repeatedly over-forecasting. Now think about what that means. If this is your sales forecast, you're probably ordering too much inventory and burning through cash. If it's your expense forecast, maybe you're not investing enough in growth. This isn't just a math problem anymore. It points to a process or even a cultural problem that you've got to fix.
Okay, next up is RMSE. The root mean squared error. Now, if bias is a psychologist diagnosing a personality flaw, RMSE is the firefighter screaming that the building is on fire. Its whole job is to find the big, painful mistakes. Because of how the math works, it squares the errors, it massively penalizes huge deviations. A tiny miss barely makes it budge. A giant miss sends this number into orbit. So you could be sitting there patting yourself on the back for a great WAPE of, say, 5%. But an RMSE of 12 crore tells a totally different story. It's a warning that lurking underneath that nice, calm average is at least one massive miss that could have destroyed a quarter's profit. This is your early warning system for the kind of error that gets people fired.
And finally, we have WASE, or Weighted Absolute Scaled Error. Now, this one sounds really complex, but the idea behind it is pure genius and, honestly, kind of humbling. It answers a very simple question. Did our fancy, complicated forecasting model actually do any better than a dead simple guess like, this month will probably be the same as last month? It basically compares your forecast error to the natural chaos of your business.
And you don't need to be a data scientist to use it. Here's the simple rule of thumb. If your WASE is less than 1, pop the champagne. Your forecast was actually better than the noise, it added real value. But if it's greater than 1, it means just guessing same as last time would have been more accurate. And that's a tough but really crucial piece of feedback.
So, we have all these different tools, right? MAPE, WAPE, Bias, RMSE, WASE. How in the world do we actually use them all together? Let's assemble the complete Forecaster's Toolkit. So here's your quick cheat sheet. Use MAPE when you need to get into the nitty-gritty details, and use WAPE for that high-level executive summary. Then you layer on Bias to check for those systematic problems, use RMSE to hunt for those big bombshells, and use WASE to make sure you're actually adding value in the first place. When you bring it all together, this is what your forecasting dashboard should look like. You lead with WAPE, that's the big headline story. Then you use MAPE and Bias to drill down into the why behind that story. And finally, you have RMSE and WASE as your risk gauges, telling you about volatility and the potential for a huge miss. See? They're not competing with each other, they're a team, and each one has a specific job to do. At the end of the day, these metrics aren't just about grading your homework. They're a roadmap. They tell you exactly where to focus your energy, where your assumptions are flimsy, and where your biggest risks are hiding. So the question I want to leave you with is this. What hidden story are your numbers waiting to tell you?